welcome or welcome back to another video. So today I'm going to show you how to do this really cute cardigan, summer cardigan. The construction is pretty easy and it is a beginner friendly project. Now do keep in mind, even if this is a beginner friendly project, you do still need to know the basics in order to even start this project. Like doing a slip knot, chaining, single crochets, double crochets, and you should know how to seam pieces together, how to sew pieces together. And of course, just a general knowledge of crochet and working in rows, chaining, turning, what not to turn. So stuff like that. Basically, the basics of crochet. These are the notes before you start, and I want you to consider these things before you even go out to buy the yarn. Bear with me. If not, and you're ready to start on the cardigan, I do have the timestamps in a pinned comment down below. So you can browse through the video for whatever step you are going to do next. Which brings me to another point. So this cardigan was made in a span of a few weeks. Actually, yeah, a few weeks. It took me really long. I enjoy the process, and this is not a pattern that I knew what to do. I just simply went with whatever felt right and whatever I thought I could do. These are notes of things that I wish I would have known or would have thought about that maybe would have helped me plan this out a little bit better, or things that I wish I would have known so that I wouldn't have to frog so much. The construction of this cardigan is made in 3 pieces. So you have one back panel, 2 front panels, and your sleeves are worked within the panels of all 3 panels. All you have to do is sew from here, the neckline here, to where your sleeve ends, and then from here all the way to the hem. And that's it. That's all the sewing you need to do. This cardigan is made to your size. Whatever size you want to go make and whatever fit you want, you can adjust this cardigan and it works just fine. I'm using the Yarn Council's charts and ease suggested measurements, so I will attach those in the description box. Because this is a made to order, customized to you garment, the amount of chains you need is highly going to depend on the size that you choose and the fit that you want. At this point, I highly suggest you get your tape measure and you measure your bust, because that's the measurement that you really are going to need to figure out where or what size you want to use. Now, I say size loosely because this is still a cardigan that you are going to basically, customize to you. But the good thing about the Yarn Council's charts is that they did the hard part for you, meaning they took out the proportions and they tell you approximately how much every piece needs to be. For this cardigan, you're going to need the armhole diameter, so they did the work for you. You don't have to use that specific guideline, but because you do have the cardigan, you can measure it out as you are making it, so you don't really need to do that. But it gives you a good foundation. You're not gonna say, for example, my arm needed to be about 16 inches in diameter. That means I had 8 inches on the front, 8 inches in the back. So for me, I know that maybe 7 inches worth of rows is probably not going to be enough. And if I put it on and if I try it out, and yeah, it might fit, but it doesn't necessarily mean that once I put it on, it accounts for the movement of my shoulder. If you want to completely wing it and just completely eyeball it, you're more than welcome to. Heck, that's what I did. I simply chained. When I started my cardigan, I chained and I put that chain right here and I said, yep, goes halfway. The other half, I'll divide it in two, and it worked out. So these are just guidelines, but I think it does make it easier on you. It keeps everything in proportions. With that being said, this pattern is worked in multiples of 3. So whatever measurement you need, or whatever, however long you need your chain to be, just make sure that you finish in a multiple of 3, and then you add 1. And you have to keep in mind that this multiple of 3 plus 1 is then going to dictate the following steps and how you do every single chain that you do with this cardigan. For your materials, you're going to need a tape measure, some scissors, a tapestry needle, some stitch markers, and of course, yarn. I used this yarn. This is Yarntopia yarn from Yarn Bee, and this is in the color Ivory. And this is a number 2 fine yarn. I use this one because it's $3.99 for 4 ounces, and I use roughly 3 skeins of this. And this is from Hobby Lobby. You get 30% off every other week. In the event that I needed more, I could just run down to the store and buy more. So for me, this was very accessible. And actually, almost any yarn will work for this because it's customized to you. Now, I do prefer this thinner yarn because the drape just, it's pretty. So if you use another kind of weight, maybe like a DK or a worsted weight, that might affect the drape. Yeah, and for your hook, you're using a 4mm hook. So you should be good to go. Trust me, I know it's scary to use fine yarn, but it works up really fast and is very easy. And because of the V stitches, you don't ever have to struggle where you're going to put your yarn because it's right there. It's easily visible. All right, let's get started. Since this pattern is worked in multiples of 3 plus 1, I have made 16 chains. So you're gonna skip the first 4 chains. 1, 2, 3, 4. And on that 5th chain, you're going to put a double crochet, chain 1, a double crochet into that same chain. You're going to skip 2 chains, 1, 2, and on that following or 3rd chain, you're going to put a double crochet, chain 1, and another double crochet. Skip 2, 1, 2, and you're going to do this the length of your chain. Once you get to the end, you have 2 chains left over. So you're going to skip 1, and on that very last chain, you're going to put a double crochet. You're going to turn your work. You're going to chain 3. And in this chain 1 space in between the V, that is where you're going to put a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, and in this next chain 1 space, you're going to put another V, so for every V you have, you're going to put another V. And your V's are made up of a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. Once you get here to the end, you're going to do a double crochet at the top of this turning chain. That's it. And then you're going to repeat row number 2, chaining 3, V stitch, in these chain 1 spaces. And that's it. This is the back panel. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to work a few chains this way, and then I'm going to attach yarn here, and I'm going to work the same amount of chains on this side over here, and that's going to be my sleeve. So right now, this length is going to be the hem to where I would attach the armhole. Keep in mind that because this pattern of V-stitch is worked in a multiple of 3, you have to add a multiple of 3 chains here and here. So for example, I'm thinking of like a t-shirt length. I'm going to see what 33 chains look like and like the length of that. And I might go from
33 to maybe 36 or 39. And if it's too long, then I'll go down to 30. But whatever I add here, I have to add here, and it has to be a multiple of 3. If you are not using this stitch pattern, then by all means use the multiple that you need to. This is the completed cardigan, and I'm just gonna redo the explanation because it really wasn't making sense. Right here, I did, as you remember, 33 chains here. So now it's important that you add a +1 because the pattern itself is worked in multiples of 3 plus 1. So you cannot forget to add your +1. So I did 33 plus 1, and that made it so that I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 V-stitches on the actual sleeve. Now, my 11th was able to be placed right here on this very first double crochet, and then I was able to just continue the pattern down the rest of the cardigan. So it's very important that whatever stitches you choose to work with here for your length, you don't forget your +1, or in the chance that you're using another stitch pattern, your plus whatever. The other side, or on the side that I ended up attaching my yarn, I only had to make sure that I did 33 chains, because I didn't have to add that +1 since it was only a continuation of this side. It was just continuing here. And that 33 chains gave me the same number of V-stitches here on the actual sleeve, which is 10. And then my 11th stitch was actually placed here at the very top of the double crochet. The amount of rows that you work here is going to greatly depend on the size that you're making. The guidelines from the Yarn Council, the armhole is supposed to be around 16 inches in diameter. So that means I would roughly need to have 8 inches here and then 8 inches in the front. This is the completed back panel, and this is the length. So this is what you are looking at whenever you finish your back panel. For this next part, this is specific to this stitch pattern, to the V's. I've already worked on the back panel, and it turned out to be 30 V stitches across. So in order to do the front panels, I want to do 15 and 15. This is going to be the equation of how you're going to know how many chains to do. So in order to figure out how many chains you need to do for your front panels, you are going to do the amount of V stitches that you need, and that's going to be based off of half of the number of the back panel, times 3 plus 5. So for my cardigan, I have 30 stitches, 30 V stitches running across the back panel. So each front panel needs to be 15 V stitches across. So 15 times 3 is 45, plus 5 equals 49. Whatever length you want to do, that's however many rows you do. I ended up doing 35 rows, and then on row 36, I started doing the extra chains here to work on the sleeve, and then I worked a few rows here. Let me see. Let me zoom out. And then I worked a few rows until I was comfortable enough to where I wanted the decrease to start happening. So yeah, that's basically it. But I'll show you the decreases once we get there. Because the stitch is reversible and it looks the same both sides, you don't need to cut and reattach your yarn once you're going to start working on the sleeves. I decided that I was going to start working on the sleeves at row number 36. So once I got to that row, I simply did 33 chains plus 1. And I worked a few rows, and then I started working on the decrease. So for me, I started working my decreases at row 43. And then from there, in order to begin my decrease, I started with chaining 3 and then putting a double crochet
in the first chain one space or that V stitch, and then working a regular V stitch on that chain one space. I then follow the same pattern that I have been following, which is one V stitch per one V stitch. And I follow that all the way to the end of the row. And once I got back to the top of the row, I did a regular V stitch. And then in between that double crochet and that chain 3, I placed a double crochet. I turned my work, I chained 3, I did a double crochet in that first chain 1 space or that V, and then I worked a regular V in that chain 1 space, which is the V. And I repeated those 3 rows until I got to the desired length, which for me was 20 rows. For you, it might be different. But as you can see here on the other clip, that is how high I started my decrease. And as you will see, or as you might have already seen from the thumbnail, that's how wide and how open it is. So that is something that you might want to consider when you're looking at where you want your rows to start decreasing and where you want that V-neck to sit. This is where you're going to be seaming in all of the parts together. It's pretty self-explanatory. I point with my finger where you're going to be sewing them together. I used a regular old mattress stitch, and that was it. There's no science to it. Just make sure that it looks pretty. Choose whatever stitch or seaming method that you want. This is how it looks like. This is the shoulder portion. This is the bottom portion, as you can see here. My trim, I started working from the back of the cardigan. This is the back panel. And I started by attaching my yarn here in the middle. And I worked a single crochet for every one of these stitches. So for every double crochet, I did one single crochet. And I also did a single crochet per every chain one space. So I worked my way around. So for every row that began in a double crochet, I put one single crochet. If the row began with 3 chains, I put 2 single crochet. So as you see here, this row began with chain 3. So I put 2 single crochets. This row began with a double crochet. So I put 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet, 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet, 1 single crochet, and I worked my way all the way around. And I do have the footage on how I work the corners, so I'm going to put that in here now.
We're at our very first edge, and this is 1 single crochet, so I would have to do 2 single crochets here, right? So I'm going to do 2, the 2 that I was going to do, and then I'm going to do 1 more, so I'm going to do 3 total, and then I'm going to go into this first V-stitch right here. So it's 2, my corner, 1, and then I start here, 2 single crochets, 1 inside the V-stitch, and that's the pattern I'm going to follow all the way through. So once I get to the other corner or the other edge, I'm going to do 3 single crochets, and I'm going to start with 1 single crochet, 2 single crochets, 1, 2, and work my way that way up the cardigan and get to the other point or the first stitch. I have finished that first row. So I'm just going to do a row of double crochets, and that's it. One stitch per stitch. And then once I get to the corner on the middle single crochet, that's where I'm going to put 3 double crochets. And that's it. So that's what I'm going to do right now, and I'm going to finish this up and we'll see how this turns out, because this is try number, I lost count. I lost track of how many times I've actually started on this trim. But this is it. This is the one. I think this is the one that is going to stick. Yeah, it stretches with the fabric. I have already finished the row of double crochets, so now I just chain 2, and I'm going to start working front post, back post. Front post is putting my hook and bringing this double crochet forward and then doing a double crochet. Yarn over. Back post is going through the back and pushing that double crochet back. See how it comes over here? So now we yarn over and pull our yarn through, and we finish that double crochet. And so now we're going to do front post, and that's what we're going to do all the way around the cardigan. To get it tied right so that it looks pretty, what I do is this string, this chain goes into this stitch right here, to this double crochet. I pull through, oops, I pull through, and then this left chain, I put it where the right chain comes out of, like that. So then I pull, and then I do a little twisty twist, and then I just twist it. Makes a knot, but it's not like a knot that you can't like undo. And then you do your 2 little bunny ears and pull. And that's it. And then that way it won't come undone. And in the off chance, which it probably won't, that it does tear, no biggie, is just the chains. You can simply attach yarn and chain away. I did 63 chains, and that's the length that I got. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this tutorial, please leave a like. Thank you. Bye.